From the shadows, she appears. Jennylyn show, illuminates and tells me all yearn to know. With beats that pulse and sense that ignite, taking us to new heights.
Hello, you're watching Conversations with Jennylyn. In case, for those of you who do not know who I am an independent producer, television and podcast producer. And I've been doing a segment which I've been calling My Nightmare. And today I'm going to be producing the fourth segment. So if you are interested and you'd like to follow what has happened segmentally, or in order for what I'm saying today to make sense to you, I encourage you, please, to go back and look at my previous segments so that you can follow what I'm talking about. I've been living alone since 2000, and for almost 19 years ago, I had something happen in my life, which I've been dealing with and continue to deal with. It's not a popular thing or experience. So for a lot of people, you would have difficulty believing it. I've said in previous segments, it's happening to me, and I am having difficulty, sometimes even believing that I'm living what I am. So I understand that cognitive dissonance gets in the way of a lot of things that come our way. Some of it, if our parents haven't told us or the education system hasn't told us, then we just say it's craziness because it doesn't resonate with us. But I have better things to do with my day, and I wouldn't come before you and share this if it weren't really happening to me. And I want to start today by saying my journey is happening as a lesson so that I may use this experience to help others. And that's what I believe is the reason for me going through this. Second thing is I want to dedicate today's segment to someone that held my hand. Because although I say I live alone, and I've been doing this alone, without water, an island cannot be an island, right? So even an island has something with it, which is the water that embodies it or surrounds it. Sorry. So today's segment I'm dedicating to my best friend and neighbor who I was able to hold on to get me through what we both called craziness as the things unfolded and as life happened. And her name is Cheryl. And I didn't have her permission to leave her name here, so I'm not going to leave her last name. But she was my neighbor in San Francisco, and she can testify to almost everything I share. Because if she weren't with me when it was happening, I showed her the evidence and I shared what happened with her. So today's segment I'm dedicating to my friend Cheryl. I've moved to New York almost 2 years, and she's still holding my hand. I still call her whenever there's a problem. And not only am I dedicating this segment to her, but to her children as well. They were woken up in the middle of the night. They had to listen to bells ringing in my house at midnight, and they tolerated and put up with a lot because they loved me and because they couldn't believe what was happening to me either. She's also the one who collected evidence on her camera of stuff that happened, which I will eventually mention, or it will be in the book that I was instructed to write, which will be called My Fire Put Out Their Evil. It's left an indelible brand on my brain now, although it came to me in the wee hours of the morning and I had to record it in order to remember. Today's segment I'm going to dedicate to Cheryl. And this is the third time I'm saying it because I want to make sure she knows how much gratitude lives in my heart for the ways she held my hand through what we both call craziness. And several times she would yell at me because she thought I was trusting. I was too trusting. And I kept bringing more and more situations into my life, trying to find help. And she didn't think that I checked them out enough. And most times she was right because they ended up being disastrous. Before I launch into today's experience or the portion of this journey that I'm going to share with you today, I want you to know that there was a time when I wanted to die, where I sold myself short, where although I knew myself to be a pure human, because like I said before, and I'm going to say again, I have hurt people, but it was never my intention. The decisions I made and the choices I made were intended to help, but they were not what the people who were hurt believed I was doing. And so they were hurt. Or there were times when I hurt people because I had to make decisions to protect myself. And so it hurt people because it's not what they wanted me to do. Today, I want to tell you, while this was happening, I wanted to die because whenever I would meet people and they would tell me I was beautiful, I never believed it. I just thought that maybe they could see what was happening to me and they were saying it out of pity for me. So many times I put up with a lot of crap from people because I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be a little bit normal because nothing about my life for 19 years was normal. And every time I met someone new, I would hope not that they were suffering like I was, but that something they would say would resonate with what I was living. So then I could feel like, okay, it's not just me, and I'm not weird, and there's not something really awful with me. To me, more than what was done and more than what happened, that was the root of my suffering. I could not believe why, of all the people I knew, it was happening to me, because I watched some of these people do awful things. And they were fine, and everything was working out perfectly in their lives. I, on the other hand, found myself striving even harder to be a better version of me to see if this would vanish. Because when you don't know what you're dealing with, you can't get the necessary help that you need. Because how do you fix something that you don't know? If I have a broken toe, I can put some support under it and help it to heal. But when you don't know what it is, you can't heal it. So, with that being said, I'm going to launch into what I have decided to share with you today. I was born in Guyana and I was raised in Guyana until I was about 18 or 19, and then I left. I lived most of my life in San Francisco, the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. So I refer to my home as California because that's where I spent the majority of my life. While I was there, and I think it was into the 7th year of me dealing with this, I had a school friend from Guyana visit California, and she was coming to visit me. Now, I had a guest room, But when all of these things started happening, when you hear what I've done, you will wonder, you really will wonder what got me through it. I sold all the guest room furniture, not knowing she was coming. Because after the woman I mentioned in the previous segment from New York had come to my house and she stayed in that room, I thought she did something to all of my furniture in my bedrooms. That's why my bed shook. That's why I got poked. That's why things were walking in my bedroom. And I gave away my bedroom set. I just wanted someone to take it. I was told it wouldn't hurt anybody else because what was done to it was done to hurt me. So I figured it couldn't hurt another person. It was beautiful furniture because if you know me, you'll know I like the best of the best. So I gave away my bedroom set and I gave away all the furniture in the room where this woman stayed. So there's no furniture. Here's my high school friend coming to visit. And I'm thinking, where am I going to put her to sleep? I had purchased a new bed for myself, and I was sleeping on that bed, and the other room was empty. So I decided she'd have to sleep with me on my bed because it was a big bed. My worry was she would see how I slept. And that was my big secret. I don't have no guys stay over. I'm not dating anyone. So nobody knows how I sleep. I think I shared in the previous segment, the only thing you could see was my nose because I was trying to protect myself at night and I would cover everything up except my nose so I could breathe to see if these things would stop poking me. So she comes over and we go to bed. I turn off my lights. And she looked over at me, which I didn't want her to do. She goes, Jenny, what are you doing? Because this was my big secret. I did not want anyone to know what was happening to me except my neighbor because I trusted her and she was my support and she held my hand and she came and tried to help me find solutions. So I said, I'm going to tell you something, but you have to promise me that when you go back to Guyana, you won't tell anybody because I don't know what happened. I don't know why it's happening. So here I was telling her this story, thinking I would shock her, only to find out that she knows of someone that's happened to. And that was such a relief. So now I have another person in my camp who can hopefully help me. And she told me she knows someone in Guyana who's helped people who've had this happen to them. And I almost jumped out of my bed at midnight to go, can I? So for 3 days, I tried to call this man. I finally got a hold of him because he lives somewhere up in the mountains in Guyana and he didn't have regular internet access. And so I told him what was happening when I finally reached him. Now, I don't have a lot of money because part of what was done to me was to block me from having love, money. I was struggling. I lived on minimal income and I continued to have very weird, catastrophic things happen. One of them was an accident at work. So now I'm not working. I injured my back, so I was having a lot of back pain. And I was living on very little money. Very little. When I spoke to this man, he told me he would need to see me in Guyana. And he asked me if I had any idea of who was doing this to me. I said I wasn't sure, but I've been told in the past by people it was a Chinese woman. And at first I didn't have a picture of her, but I have one now. And I'm going to send it with 9 other pictures. I sent him 10 pictures, 3 Chinese women, a Black woman, the one who was at my house, and a few other people, random people. Once he downloaded the pictures, he came right back at me and told me it was CasSandra. Now, this is the 7th person that has ID'd her. Because once I got her picture, I sent it to other people who I'd gone to for help, and each one of them ID'd her as the person. So after he ID'd her, I said, okay, I'll come to Guyana. My big worry now was where would I stay in Guyana and how would I get to this man? Because I have a lot of family still in Guyana, a sister and a brother, and sisters-in-laws, and nieces and nephews, and lots of friends. But I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of what is happening in my life. Although I did nothing to invite it, I don't know what it is. I didn't want my family to know. I know they saw me struggling, and I know they were thinking that maybe I was irresponsible in some way, and this is why my life was like it was. But I couldn't tell them. I couldn't tell anybody. It was my shame, but I couldn't understand what I did that brought me this shame. So I decided, okay, I would go to Guyana. Now I had 4 days. I had 1 week to go to see him, and he needed 5 days to do what he had to do to clear whatever was happening to me. My neighbor didn't think I should go. She thought that I was trusting everybody. But I was thinking she doesn't have to deal with what I'm dealing with every night. When everyone is sleeping, I can't sleep. And so what have I got to lose? So I bought a ticket, which pretty much ate up most of my money to go to Guyana. And I was going to fly with a Panamanian airline. Can't think of the name now. Anyway, I'll tell you the name. And I needed a ride to the airport because I didn't really have the money to get the ticket. My friend who was at my house organized for me to get a ride from the airport and a taxi to drive me around. And she got a friend who said I could stay at her house. Meanwhile, I have a lot of family there, and they would have gladly helped me. But I was embarrassed to tell them what was happening and why I was going to Guyana. So my plan was to sneak into Guyana and sneak back out without any of my family knowing. And hopefully this would be cleaned away. And then I don't have to ever worry about it again. And then my life would just start over and they wouldn't know this had happened to me. So I get to the airport. My neighbor gave me a ride to save me having to pay a taxi. I flew with Copa Airlines. I got to San Francisco airport. I was so grateful to my neighbor that she drove me. And I was the first in line. I was anxious to get to Guyana. As soon as they opened up, I got there like an hour or so before the counter was even open. I was first in line. They took my passport. Meanwhile, I'm Guyanese, although Guyana does not allow dual citizenship. The guy looked at my passport and he goes, "Ma'am, you can't go on this flight." I go, "What? What do you mean I can't go on the flight?" He goes, "You can't because your passport will expire in 6 months." I go, "What? I'm going for a week. I'll be back long before those 6 months." He goes, "Ma'am, I don't make the rules. I cannot put you on the flight. If I do, they'll send you back." I burst into tears. Everybody at the counter is looking at me like, what the heck is wrong with her? He goes, "Ma'am, you need to move over so we could help the next customer." I moved over, I sat on my suitcase, and I could not stop crying. Meanwhile, I was afraid to go back to my house because the night before we left, this man was helping me from Guyana. And in the middle of the night, I heard my garage opening while I was in my bed. And I came down and my garage was wide open. I couldn't tell you who opened the garage. And so I felt a little safer because my girlfriend was there with me. But she had gone back to Guyana and she was preparing for when I got there to take me to this man. And now I can't get on the flight. And I don't want to go back to my house. And I don't know where I would go. And I didn't want to call my neighbor and say, I didn't get the flight. Could you please come? I couldn't ask her to do that. So I took a Uber home back to the house that I was afraid to go to because none of my friends, none of the people I know would be able to help me. It was late at night. I got back to the house and I told myself, I lived through everything else. I'll get through this night. So I left all the lights on in my house and I took Benadryl so that I would just sleep. And the next morning, I had to rush to San Francisco, pay $200 to get a new passport so that I could get to Guyana to get this done. I got the passport and I was able to get COBA to give me a credit so that I could get on the next flight to Guyana. The night that I was going to Guyana, I picked up the passport in the morning. That evening, I was on this flight. When I got to the airport and she took my passport and she scanned it, the red X came up and my passport was rejected. She looked at me, I looked at her. She scanned it again. Red X, passport rejected. She goes, I don't know what could be wrong. I just picked this up from the passport office today. She goes, I can see that. She goes, you know what? Just go on the flight. She let me on the flight. I'm claustrophobic. I get on, whenever I fly, I always try to get a window or an aisle seat. I was sitting between two very overweight people. And I specifically asked for an aisle or a window seat. When the flight attendant walked by, I said, I specifically asked for a window or an aisle seat because I'm claustrophobic and this is a 5-hour flight. I don't mean to be a nuisance, but could I please get another seat? And I could tell that he felt sorry for me because I was already tearful and stressed out from this whole ordeal. So eventually brought me up and put me in an aisle where I sat by myself. So some of this stuff that was intended to create havoc and pain, a lot of times God worked it out so that I ended up being in an even better situation. Anyway, we got to Guyana, and when the plane landed, it hit the runway and bumped. Everyone on board was looking at each other like, what was that? But thank God we landed. Now the car came to pick me up, and we are on our way to these people because I have 5 days and one of it's already gone. And they told me they're going to try. And once I got there, start the work. They lived up in the mountains somewhere. And we couldn't call them to tell them we're on our way to get their address. My friend who took me, who had gone to them, was with me, but she couldn't remember how to get to their place. And we had to go through, it looks like a sand dune. The car got stuck in the sand. I cannot make this stuff up. We were stuck. It was the taxi driver or the guy driving the car who was her brother, she and I. And we were stuck in this sand. And we cannot reach the people I'm going to help me. I cannot make this stuff up that I'm telling you. Everything I tell you on my life happened. So eventually we got the car out, and when the people hadn't heard from me, they called me, and we told them we had been trying to call them for 45 minutes and that the car was stuck and we couldn't get it out to get up to them. And he said he had a motorcycle, he would come down and get me. So here is this man I don't know from Adam, came down from up in the mountains. I'm on the back of his motorcycle, and we go up, which felt like we were going up to heaven. We kept going up and up some mountain. We got there, and the next 5 days, the details of what happened will be in the book. At the end of this series, you will understand why this title of this segment is so appropriate. Nightmare. It was a nightmare. So I went to their house and they started the work, and then they told me they would have to take me to the ocean to bathe me. If I weren't a strong person, I'm here to tell you, there is no way I would have survived this. So every day I went to their house and they did work, which, like I said, will be in the book. And then the day that we had to go to the ocean, they told me we had to make sacrifices at the ocean. Now, I don't know. I don't know what that means. But they said we had to go to the market in Guyana and buy fruit and different things. And then we had to go to the ocean and pray, and that they would bathe me and wash off some of, and they would pray to the god of the ocean. All these details will be in the book. So we went to the marketplace and I bought the stuff we needed for the bath. And then we went to the ocean. And as we were setting up, they were setting up, because I'm along for the ride. I just wanted this to go away. I don't know how it's done with what they're doing. I was trusting them. My friend recommended them highly, so I went there with that in mind. Just as they were about to start the work, the man says to me, "Jenny, come here." And I go walking over and he goes, "This woman is so evil. She knows we are going to help you. Look at my phone." And we looked down on his phone, and her picture magically appeared on his screen. And it was not there before, because before he was using prayers on his phone and her picture was nowhere in sight. And he set the phone down to set up whatever altar he was doing for the prayers, and her picture appeared on the screen. And he said to me, "She watches you all the time. She knows we're trying to help you, and she's trying to block what I'm going to do now." There is so much that happened that day, which I will put in the book because I don't want these segments long and drawn out. But I want to make sure that I frame what will be in the book for you. So if you're interested in knowing the details of what happened, you will be able to have a framework from now before you read the book, if you're so inclined. So they gave me the bath and all of what they needed. And then something happened that blocked them from being able to carry on with my treatments. And I was going to need more money and more time. And I didn't have any more money. I didn't have their money. So I ended up having to call my brother. I called my younger brother and I told him, "I'm sorry, I'm in Guyana. Someone did something awful to me. I've been trying to hide it from the family. And I'm in Guyana trying to get help because I've been dealing with it for about 12 years at this point, and everyone that I've gone to for help has not helped me. And so one of my high school friends has brought me to Guyana, and I didn't tell you all because I didn't want you to know. I was hoping I could get it cleared away and I never have to say anything." At this point of this story, I'm going to tell you, I now understand why the other people who tried to help me couldn't help me. It wasn't that they probably didn't try. I think some of them just wanted to make money off of my situation, and they did. But I really believe some of them truly tried to help me. But this woman, CasSandra, is doing this to me every day, every day. So going to someone to do a one-time thing to wash it off of me was not going to ever work. And so, hence, I went down many rabbit holes trying to change this, not knowing that they couldn't. And I think some of them knew they couldn't. They could give me some reprieve, but in truth and in fact, no one did. Because on the way back from Guyana, I cried all the way home because I was poked and tugged, as always, all the way from Guyana back to San Francisco Airport. At this point of this interview, I'm going to introduce a woman who's now, I call her a best friend. Melanie Lawson, the woman I'm currently working with, who does not ask me for money and who has been working, setting her alarm, waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning to help me. And for the first time in my life, thank you, God, someone is helping me. She told me she's been doing this work for years and she's never seen a case like mine, where someone could have so much hatred for another person that this is a daily 3 time a day activity. And at night when I'm sleeping, because I'm in New York and she's in California, she wakes me up with however she does this stuff. I can tell you what has happened to me. I cannot tell you how they do it. I don't want to know. I don't want to know anything about darkness. All I know is it's real. And I know the biggest mistake you can make is if someone is doing this to you, denying its power, because you'll end up like me. That's what I did for 19 years. And that's why it had the power that it had in my life. But no more, Sandra. No more. Your party is over. And you know what? I feel sad for you because I am told that everything you've been sending me is about to go back to you. And I don't want you to suffer like I did. I don't. I don't want any human to suffer like I did. I know to some I must look like a complete idiot sitting here talking about this. But to you, to those people, I understand. I understand that cognitive dissonance is preventing you from understanding, and this is so far-fetched and so out of the ordinary that it's not easy for the average person to relate to it or to comprehend how it's possible. I'm in it. I've been in it for almost 20 years. I don't know how it works. Oftentimes, I find myself trying to connect the dots in my head and make sense of it and try to explain to myself how it's possible. But I can't, and I don't want to know. All I want to know is how to make it go away and how to prevent it happening to another person. Nobody should have to go through what I've gone through. I often say to God, if someone in my family had to suffer like I am suffering, I am glad it's me, because I have balls of steel and I will overcome anything. This is why I picked myself up and flew to the countries where people told me they could help me, because I'm not a scaredy cat. I'm a risk taker. Some of my risks have worked out, and some haven't. And that's life. When do we ever do everything that we do and get the result we want? right? And so because I've been forced to have an open attitude about this, I found help in the end, and we've kicked it, and the war is over. But just like every bully, when the end has come and they have lost, they go into their arsenal and they start pulling out all their tools and trying them again, although they're tools that have already failed. So today, I dedicate this segment to Mel, Cheryl, Marika. And if I'm not saying your name and you help me, it's not because I am not grateful. I'm not thinking of everyone, but there's several segments to come. And I will make sure I acknowledge all of you. Katrine and Andy, San Filippo, Jackie and Alan Seidel. Without you people, this thing would have kicked my ass and I would have lost. But no, I am not a loser and it's behind me. And now my job is just beginning because I was assigned with the task to help God's captives. And I'm here for you all. I don't know how, but I know the woman who does. And she is high integrity, honest, Christian woman or spiritual woman. And her name is Mel Lawson. And if you're dealing with anything close to this, I will happily and unreservedly direct you to Mel because I promise you, she is a woman of integrity. She has woken up in the middle of the night 3, 4 times a day. In between her work, she checks in. Hi, Jenny, how are you doing? I type her details of what's happening, and within 5 or 10 minutes, it's cleared. Never before have I had this kind of support. And this is why I know that I've been victorious. And so thank you for following this story. If you know anyone dealing with this, there's a high level of shame that comes with it because people frown upon it. It's not relatable. And people think you're weird. And people act like, don't come near me. You're going to bring your jumbies to bother me. I know. I've lived it. But I am good alone. I do this life alone since 2000. But like I said earlier, even an island has water. It's surrounded by water. And so even though I've been doing this kind of alone, I've had angels in my life. So Mel, Cheryl, Katrine and Andy, Jackie and Alan, Olivia, Norma, Jerry, all the people who didn't judge me, who supported me when they can, and my angel, Cheryl. Cheryl, without you and your children, I would have fallen apart because there was a day when I wanted to die and I walked out on the street and I kept asking God for a car to hit me and kill me. There was such a day. I had given up. But God was not going to let a car hit me because He didn't make a weakling in me. I was just tired of fighting something I didn't know and didn't know how to make it stop. I'm signing off now, and I will be back next week with segment 5. If you know anyone suffering, please contact me and I will send them to Mel because I can promise you she won't try to steal your money. Her heart is designed and is geared toward helping God's captives. Thank you for watching Conversations with Jennylyn. This is not popular, but hopefully inspirational and directional because I can direct you to where you can find help. Thank you again and see you next week.
From the shadows, she appears. Jennylyn Show.